Welcome to the first episode of Cinema Relics Live of 2026. Thanks everybody for joining us. We've been very busy over the holiday and since working on some new projects. So we apologize for not having any lives or any Cinema Relics Investigates out there, but we've got some new stuff that we're working on, including some Cinema Relics Investigates that you guys are going to be excited to hear about a little bit. At least you'll hear about one a little bit today, just a little tease. But the main reason for today's Cinema Relics Live is I'm having a friend of mine on, a very well-known man in Star Wars collecting, Steve Sansweet. Steve, how you doing, Steve?
Hi, Dan. Good to see you.
Great to see you as well. Appreciate you taking time to talk to us. We know that there's a lot of fans of yours out there that are fans of Star Wars. I certainly have been a fan of yours since the 90s. And I remember I first met you at a Comic-Con one year, and it was ever since I was in awe of your collection. You're well known for not only having the largest Star Wars collection, but having a private museum, Rancho Obi-Wan, concerning Star Wars merchandise and collectibles. And also you worked for Lucasfilm for a number of years, didn't you?
It all tied together very well. I mean, who would have thought that 50 years ago seeing a movie and an advanced preview would change my life, but it certainly has.
Yeah. Well, Star Wars has changed a lot of people's lives, certainly mine as well. I have been obsessed, as you can see with my shirt. I'm a big fan of the AT-AT. It's probably my holy grail. It's not the holy grail, it's the Star Wars AT-AT from Empire Strikes Back, as from a collector's point of view, which I don't think I'll ever get one, but that's okay. It's always good to have something slightly out of your reach. So when people go to Rancho Obi-Wan, your private museum, what is the reaction that you're going to get, but you also look forward to?
Well, the reaction is sort of programmed in, and we hope to get it. And there are a couple of major reveals during the tour, which lasts about 2 to 3 hours, done by docents mostly these days. And one is the first reveal. We go to the library first, and then the first reveal opens the door, and you see the entirety of the front bay of the museum. And I expect either giggles, sighs, or shouts of, we don't want to repeat that on the air.
That's right, yes. Expletives deleted, right?
Expletives indeed, but
yes.
Friendly expletives.
Yeah,
and that to me is worth it. I mean, what the thrill I get is sharing my collection with fellow fans and collectors from all over the world. We're now in our 15th year at Rancho Obi-Wan. We're a nonprofit under the federal tax laws, and onward and upward. We're talking about another step forward in the next bunch of years, and we hope to have a purpose-built museum that combines 4 major Star Wars collections sometime in the next decade or so.
Yeah, that is the name of that is the Saga, right? The Saga Museum of Star Wars.
The Saga Museum of Star Wars Memorabilia.
Yes. I've been on the inside a little bit on this project, and I have to say it is a big step. It's a very impressive thing that you guys are putting together. I think if anybody should be doing this kind of thing, it should be you and the group that's together with you. Your collections are unbelievable, and we just got to get this thing made, right?
Yeah, we can use all the help we can get.
Let's air. We've got a 30-minute teaser. 30 minutes. Yeah, we got a 30-minute teaser. No, we got a 30-second teaser. Thank you, guys. That we'd like to show. And then at the end of this interview, after we're done talking to Steve, we've got a 5-minute video that will impress upon you what they're really trying to do. But let's play this.
We're bringing together 4 of the largest Star Wars collections in the world to make one giant collection that will be by far the biggest Star Wars collection in the world.
As first-generation Star Wars fans, it's up to us to preserve this legacy.
This is a museum that's by the fans, for the fans.
This will be a place of community building and learning,
where people can come from all over the world and geek out together.
We are sharing this dream with you and asking for your help to make this a reality. The Saga Museum of Star Wars Memorabilia. Join us on our journey to preserve these collections for future generations.
So Star Wars clearly is a big part of your life, but before Star Wars, what ultimately drove you to Star Wars? Why were you interested in Star Wars in the first place?
Well, as I was growing up, the space program, the U.S. and Russia, was just getting underway. I delivered newspapers one summer, and I can still remember a Sunday morning delivering the news to people before they were awake with photos and stories on the front page about some satellite launch, and I felt, wow, this is a new era. I grew up reading science fiction novels. It was the beginning of the science fiction book club. I had space toys. I still remember a Lewis Marks and Company tin space fort with the green spacemen with the little plastic see-through helmets on. And I bought that again as I started collecting space toys in the 70s. Rockets and robots and wind-up toys and battery-operated robots from Japan, tin toys and plastic. And then Star Wars came along.
Now, before we dive into Star Wars, I'm curious, were you a collector before you collected the tin toys and the space toys, or was that your first foray into collecting as a hobby?
I've been a collector all my life. I collected matchbook covers, drink swizzle sticks from bars and restaurants, baseball cards. So I had it all. Yeah, I think I had a collecting gene.
I think there is something to that. I think there's, I've been a collector ever since I was a kid as well. I started collecting comic books and then my action figures and then led into all different types of craziness before I got into props. But I think there is something in you. You're either a collector or you're not. But back to Star Wars. Why did Star Wars click for you? When did the bug get you? When did it bite you?
Well, the first bite was at a media screening on the back lot of 20th Century Fox 10 days before Star Wars opened.
Wow.
And I was in the auditorium with a bunch of other media people from around Los Angeles. And I think the moment that the Star Destroyer came overhead and we all sort of looked up and why are we looking at the ceiling to see the Star Destroyer? Where did it come from?
That's right.
And everybody sort of laughed to themselves and we were hooked. And I can remember after the movie was over, just feeling this sense of awe and then going up to the public relations man and asking for my ticket back as a souvenir.
Oh, nice. So was that your first Star Wars item that you kept?
No, it was actually a couple of months before when the marketing brochure that Fox and Lucasfilm sent out to the media and to theaters to book Star Wars came and went to the reporter at the Wall Street Journal, my office in LA, who covered the movie business. And after he looked at it, I was sort of looking from afar and slobbering a little. He threw it in his wastebasket. And when he left for the day, I tootled over to the wastebasket and rescued it. My first dumpster diving for Star Wars, but certainly not the last.
That's right. That's right. Any true collector has done some dumpster diving, haven't we?
Absolutely.
That's right. As a collector, how do you decide what is worth adding to your collection? Now, obviously, over the years, you've collected an impressive amount of pieces, but other than you already have it, what kind of decision making goes into why you want to bring something into the collection?
Well, at first I called myself a completist, which meant I wanted one of everything. And then realities came in, and there's a space and monetary element, and where do you put all this stuff? So these days, I don't have a massive income and disposable income. So I buy what I love. And I love quirky things. I love fan-made and artist-made objects. I have a lot of art. I have a lot of artist-made in-action figures.
Right.
And Lego Star Wars. I still collect the Hasbro action figures. I mean, once you start with the first 12 back in 1978, how can you not continue the collection?
Yeah.
It's hard to break. Again, things that are different and odd. I have a subspecialty in looking for posters that have rock band concerts advertised on them using Star Wars graphics. So it's a little difficult.
How many can there be? I imagine Star Wars has inspired a lot of musicians, so I never thought of it that way.
Over the last 50 years, plenty.
Huh. Wow.
Neil Young had concerts in 1978 that he had Jawas in for
Really?
some reason. I still can't figure out why, but there was a poster that was a photograph of Neil Young and the Jawas on stage. He had it on a DVD, CD back in the day, and so I've recently acquired that poster.
That's cool.
But
That's
reggae
cool.
bands like Slightly Stupid, just people who grew up with Star Wars want to reconnect with that.
Yeah. Well, collecting Star Wars has got to be a double-edged sword because there's always something to collect, which is wonderful, right? There's always a new Star Wars piece. But that's also the problem, is there's always a new Star Wars piece. So you can't get everything, but there's certainly lots to choose from.
Well, I recently was in Chicago and I saw something in someone's collection that just blew me away, and I regretted not buying it. And this was a Sideshow Collectibles dewback with a sand trooper on top, and I thought, this is one of the more impressive pieces that I've seen in a long time. So I had to get it on eBay. It cost me slightly more than the initial retail cost, but it was worth getting.
Wow. I have to say, you were out in Chicago working on one of those aforementioned projects that I hinted at earlier, so I appreciate that. We're out here. I'm sorry, that dewback was actually from my collection. I collect Hot Toys. Sorry about that, making you spend that kind of money. I didn't know that you were inspired by that piece.
Well, you can rebate me if you'd like.
I don't know. Maybe. Well, I'm curious. Is there a piece that you've chased for years that either you acquired or you're still looking for?
There was a piece back in the 80s when I went to an outside flea market that was raising money for the Los Angeles Zoo. And from a distance, I saw what looked like a painting of Chewbacca, but a 3D painting of Chewbacca. And I went over to the stand of the dealer and I said, that's really unusual. It's sort of furry and everything. How do you make that? And he said, well, we sweep up hair from a barbershop floor and then we glue it on. And my stomach did a flip-flop.
Wow.
I quickly left the vendor's booth, but I regret to this day not buying it, because when people ask what's the tackiest thing in your collection, I could always have said the Chewbacca hair painting.
That's right, the human hair painting.
The human hair painting.
That is both amazing and disgusting at the same time. I love it.
It was. He said we clean the hair first. He did say that.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Would you say that's the oddest Star Wars thing that you've come across?
I saw a photograph on a fan site of Walmart sanitary napkins for women with cartoon figures of Leia on the package. Certainly not licensed.
I guess princesses still need to use pads, right? So...
It was one of those things.
Wow.
I have Star Wars toilet paper though.
Yeah, wipe your ass with Darth Vader, huh? Don't go to the dark side.
Oh,
God.
I wish
So
I
many
could
bad
go
jokes
there.
that you could come out of that. You know, as a collector myself, there's always lots of weird opportunities that come in front of you the more that you're known as a collector. And obviously you're one of the most well-known Star Wars collectors in the world. Do you have a personal code, a structure of what you will and will not do as a collector? Because I imagine a lot of weird stuff comes in front of you, both legal and potentially stolen, right?
Well, you never know where something comes from unless you really trust the person who's offering it to you and
Right.
learn what the provenance is. I mean, just like your interview with Prop Store and Stephen Lane, and the importance of provenance and making sure something is what people say it is.
Yeah.
One of the codes of conduct that I really love that's shared by so many major Star Wars collectors is we don't stab each other in the back. We try to work with each other. If you know somebody specializes in something and you see it come up, you let them know rather than hogging it for yourself or buying it and trying to resell it to them at a higher price. If there's an auction, you might, and a good friend is also going to bid on things, you might get together and decide which of the items are most important to you and to him or her, and figure out what you're going to bid on based on that. So I think there's a lot of people who aren't collectors who are under the misapprehension that collectors fight each other for pieces, and sometimes that's true. But that's not my way of doing things, and that's not the way of doing things of most Star Wars collectors. It's a real community, and it's a community that loves its history. And there have been so many fan-written books about Star Wars collecting and collectibles, every niche imaginable, every country that produced Star Wars vintage items. There are books available that have been really deeply researched and are very interesting to read, and you find out all kinds of things that you didn't know existed.
I think anybody who's collected for a while that is serious about collecting anything, community of other collectors is only going to benefit you. Having a good relationship with other collectors, because like you said, you're going to find out about pieces that you may not have known, or you may find out information about a piece that you have that may help you sway to that it's right or wrong. And certainly when you're buying stuff in auction, if you're working with other collectors, you can help control the cost to a certain degree, because if you've got three friends that are all going for the same piece, only one of them is going to wind up with it, and then the person that wound up with it is going to get bid up. So there's always ways to work things out, and I think it's really smart, as well as just a good idea to work with other collectors, because ultimately these people become your friends. You don't want to screw over your friends.
I met a lot of collectors through my first book, which came out in 1992, Star Wars from Concept to Screen to Collectible. And I had all kinds of photographs in there. I worked with the people at Kenner. I got great stories, great photos. Mark Boudreau, who started at Kenner as a college student and worked part-time there and then full-time for so many years. Mark brought a lot of things from his personal collection, and a Kenner photographer took photos of them, and that was in the book. I didn't realize I had introduced so many people to pre-production items and other things that had been available. Now, if I had been smart, I would have bought everything before the book came out, but I didn't have that kind of income at the time. I was just a poor journalist.
Yeah. Well, you were a poor journalist, but you were certainly working for a very reputable place, the Wall Street Journal. So
I think that's why Lucasfilm was so happy having me write the book. It spurred a lot of collectors.
I'm sure it
gave
did.
them a bit of credibility.
Yeah, I had the book, so I mean, I think anybody who is serious about Star Wars, whether you collect it or not, found the book very interesting. And you learned a lot about how Star Wars kind of affects the entire world through all the merchandise. Speaking of pieces again, we talked about a piece that you thought was weird that you wish you had purchased. Was there ever a piece that you tracked down that you always wanted that you eventually got?
There was a Star Wars lightsaber baseball bat from a San Francisco Giants game,
Oh, that's cool.
and you had to be a VIP in
Right.
order to get it. And there was a baseball that you could buy separately. And so I managed to track down one of the bats, and then uh, uh, we went on and managed to get one of the baseballs too. So
Oh, so the
I've
baseballs
tracked
were
down.
themed too.
The baseball wasn't themed, but it was signed by, let me see here, David Eckstein,
Oh, okay.
who is married to, I'm blanking right now,
I don't know.
Ahsoka Tano's voice actress.
Oh, right. Yes. Yes. She's amazing. I love her performance as Ahsoka.
Yeah,
Um,
Ashley Eckstein.
right.
She-
So you were working at the Wall Street Journal. Then at some point you got a job working at Lucasfilm. Like, I imagine you knew them because of the Star Wars book, right? You had been interacting with them for years.
I had been. I did an interview with George Lucas for the 10th anniversary of Star Wars. We did an op-edit page column on the 10th anniversary, which resulted in a letter because I said, quoting George, that the Fox directors were very unsure of the success of Star Wars. And I got a letter to the editor, was published the next week, from one of the former directors who said, "We always knew it would be a major hit," which was full of bull.
No. All the stories I've heard is Fox
Yeah.
wasn't sure at all. They were very worried about the performance of Star
No,
Wars.
Alan Ladd Jr. was the champion of Star
right.
Wars, and yeah.
Yeah.
So
You work for Lucasfilm. You're very involved in fan relations and Star Wars Celebration. Is that not correct?
yeah, fan relations was something I worked in the marketing department, and they hired me for a 1 year only job. Just forgot to get rid of me for 15 years.
Wow.
And the job was to go out to fan conventions in 1996 to promote the special editions coming out.
Right.
And also, I added Shadows of the Empire, which was the everything but the movie kind of project. And they asked me to do 8 to 10 conventions. I did about 40.
Wow.
And then they just forgot to get rid of me, as I said. So
You became too useful.
I became useful, and my boss, who was brought in as the head of marketing, decided to keep me. And they wanted to give me a title. The first title that they wanted to give me in licensing and PR was Star Wars Ambassador, but the then president of Lucasfilm thought that was a bit too flighty, so they gave me a different title, Director of Specialty Marketing, and that was changed to Director of Content Management, which I still don't know what it means, but we had fun. It was an amazing run, and I've never looked back.
When you were working at Lucasfilm, prior to that, you were a fan, obsessing about Star Wars and working within from the fans' perspective. Now you're working for Lucasfilm for the mothership. Did that change your understanding of how fandom is? I mean, and I imagine during that period it grew as well. So what's your take on that?
Well, fandom has changed in the last couple of years, or the last 10 years, because of online and social media content. There's this small group of very negative sounding fans who are opposed, who hate.
Yeah, the
quote
vocal
unquote,
minority.
A very vocal minority. It was never that way in the past. I mean, we're talking about a time when we used postal mail, and you had to be persuasive rather than be demanding. I can still remember a series of letters from a fan in Poland who wanted to start a Jedi religion and have it officially blessed by Lucasfilm. And I tried to explain why not, that people were free to associate, but he couldn't get our blessing to start a Jedi religion. But those are just some of the aspects.
Right.
And
Yeah.
occasionally I would get asked by Lucasfilm Legal whether I thought that we should go after somebody because there was a kid here who was making fan-made action figures back in the day. And I said, you don't want the bad publicity. And
That's
I was
right.
backed by publicity on those kinds of decisions.
Well, I
I
think.
also
No, you were saying.
I also got called in sometimes when licensing was about to select a partner to do prop replicas, and they asked me my opinion on the presentation. So that was also fun. And then Star Wars Celebration came about when my boss came to me and said, we want to do something for fans prior to the opening of Celebration 1. And we want to do something like have a fan convention in maybe 5 cities on the same weekend. And I said, that would be a little impossible. And he said, well, how about 5 weekends in a row that we have in 5 different cities? I said, that would also be very straining. So I called Dan Madsen, who was head of Fantastic Media, which ran the fan club and Star Wars Insider magazine.
Right.
And they had been thinking about some kind of get together too. So that resulted in Celebration 1 and the downpour over 2 days that sort of flooded out most of the area where we had Celebration, but still fans remember it as our mud stock.
Really?
Yeah. So it was a great opportunity to see and get together and form that sense of community that's become so important and so widespread for Star Wars fans all over the world.
Yeah. You took the idea of this broad idea that Comic-Con and the Star Trek conventions did, and made it official, and really supported the fans with the cosplaying and the fan films and stuff like no other company had ever done before. And it really, I think, worked to the advantage of Lucasfilm and to the Star Wars community. I mean, people adored it and loved it, and it worked out really well. It was a great business move.
We had a 10-year run with the Star Wars Fan Film Awards, and George Lucas himself picking the George Lucas Selects Award. That was always fun. Once a year, I would go to George and give him like our final 3 for his selection.
Right.
And he would sit there and watch these films, sometimes agonizing
Yeah.
over them. But he always picked one, and then we recorded him saying the winner.
That's awesome. Well, I'm curious, what did Lucasfilm get right about the fans? And almost more importantly, did they get anything wrong about how they dealt with the fans?
I think there were occasions when they did things that were a little off kilter. Back in the 90s, before I joined Lucasfilm, they went after a student at the University of Pennsylvania who started a Star Wars website, and they tried to shut him down, and they got terrible publicity because of it.
Right.
So they learned their lesson. And then later they tried to shut down websites that had Star Wars in their names.
Right.
And I argued against that. They were wondering about when the 501st, the costuming group started,
Right.
the first really major costuming group started. There were concerns internally that somebody could rob a gas station in a stormtrooper outfit, and they would blame Lucasfilm, or it would redound to the non-benefit of Lucasfilm. And I
Right.
explained anybody could do that anyway because we were selling licensed stormtrooper helmets.
That's a very good point.
And people have robbed banks and gas stations wearing Darth Vader helmets. So you can't do anything about it, but nobody thinks that Lucasfilm is behind it.
No, not at all.
So we worked out how we work with the 501st, and that has changed over the years. But we had a great guy who started that, Alvin Johnson in South Carolina, and that organization still exists. It's had a lot of growing pains over the years. But in 2007, George said he wanted to do the Rose Parade for the anniversary of Star Wars, and he wanted 200 stormtroopers. And I told my boss, well, we can start with Southern California, and then if we need to, we can bring. And he said, no, George wants all over the world stormtroopers. So we had to figure out how to get stormtroopers from all over the world to Pasadena, California, get them trained in 3 days, and march down Colorado Boulevard. And it went off spectacularly well.
That's great. Did Lucasfilm pay for their travel?
Absolutely, paid for everything, including 2 major floats,
Wow.
Endor and Naboo.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Back to the stuff, right? Because the Rancho Obi-Wan has a lot of the stuff.
We've got about 400,000 to 500,000 items.
That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of
stuff. Yeah.
You've met fans over the generations. From the ones that saw Star Wars when it first came out to the young ones that are still just learning about Star Wars through some of the cartoons, through some of the animated shows. What's the one object that people tend to gravitate to when they come through the museum?
Well, I think that people look at the action figure tower, which is in front of the museum at the very beginning, and look at all of the figures that were done in the vintage era. And this tower, which was built for us by a company working for Target when we did an exhibition for Target on the opening weekend in LA of The Force Awakens. People really respond to that. But for the OGs of Star Wars, I think I had that, and it's all kinds of different items that people see. Or people who love the prequels because that was one of the first things they saw on the big screen.
Right.
And now we're getting people who know Star Wars because they saw one of the sequel films on the screen, or because they really watched one of the series, the streaming series.
Right.
So there's all kinds of entry points to Star Wars, and now we have multi-generations watching and taking part in the whole Star Wars fandom area.
Running a museum is a big job, especially one of your own creation on your own property. When did you first imagine doing Rancho Obi-Wan?
Well, in 2010, I knew I'd be retiring in about a year and a half. And Ann Newman and Ann, who's now the president and chief executive officer of Rancho Obi-Wan, has been with me for 20 years.
She's an amazing lady.
Yeah, she's incredible. And we talked about turning it. I had visitors over the years, but it was more like a warehouse, a sort of neat warehouse.
Okay.
With stacks of, like a library has stacks of books in the back. We had stacks of action figures and vehicles and all kinds of things, and then displays in the main aisle. So we talked about adding another barn. These are former chicken barns that Rancho Obi-Wan is housed in. And we talked about opening it up, becoming a nonprofit, and opening it up to the public. And I said, with your help. And we started doing tours, booked online. We're still doing that today, although most of the tours are done by docents who have
I have lost
my script and have learned my stories about how we're doing things, how things were acquired, what the meaning is, what the pre-production process was. And so it's worked out very well. We're celebrating 15 years this year.
That's amazing. How did you come up with the name Rancho Obi-Wan? Does it have anything to do with Club Obi-Wan from Temple of Doom, or?
No, you remember that. That's great.
Oh yeah, I'm an Indiana Jones nut.
When I moved up here in 1998, I saw one of the neighbors' properties, and they had a sign outside that said Easy Life Ranch. And I thought, oh, you can name your property. This is about 2 1/3 acres. So I thought, what can I name it? And it just sort of, Obi-Wan is my favorite character in the Star Wars saga. 2 great actors over the years.
Yep.
And it just has that mellifluous ring to it, Rancho Obi-Wan. And so it's not Rancho Jar Jar, although I like Jar Jar.
But Jar Jar is a
how it
character
came
that's
about.
that's got really a lot of ridicule up front, and now people are really leaning into what he was, and the comic relief, and the kids that grew up with Jar Jar loved him. I look at Jar Jar very differently nowadays.
Yeah, so do I. And I've met Ahmed Best, and he's a great guy.
Yeah,
The
he
actor
does seem
behind it.
like a great guy. He does, and got a lot of flack for something that ultimately he was just following George's direction and design. He had
Right.
nothing to do with it. He wasn't.
He's the writer. He's credited as the writer of a new Marvel one-shot comic on Jar Jar that's coming out
I
shortly.
didn't know that. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'll have to check it out. Let's talk about your next foray in museum world. The new museum project that you're building, that you're working on, the Saga Museum of Star Wars Memorabilia. What is it at its core? Why are you doing this?
So there are four major collections, and friends own them, and they are all looking at the future and what happens to their collections. They don't have any children. I don't have any children. And we want to leave a legacy. We love Star Wars so much that we want to combine the collections into a museum that is open to the public in a major city, major tourist area, and go forward in the future with educational programs and entertainment. And Lucasfilm supports us, not monetarily, but they support us in our goals of opening the Saga Museum.
So they're aware of what you're doing and like what you're doing.
We've worked with Lucasfilm ever since I worked for Lucasfilm, so I've always kept them in the loop, and they are indeed aware of what we're doing. We're looking to do a small pop-up for the 50th anniversary
That's
in
great.
the Northern California area. So we've got lots of plans for the future. Anne has been working very hard on these, and the collections are from two people who were directors of Rancho Obi-Wan from the start, Gus Lopez and Duncan Jenkins, and one of our newer directors, Lisa Stevens, and her husband, Vic Wirtz,
Right.
all of whom have amazing collections. Vic and Lisa and Duncan had to build barns for their collections. Gus expanded his house. His wife is also a collector of Stitch, and
That's
has
right.
an amazing Stitch collection.
Yeah, I think
So-
she's got one of possibly the world's largest Stitch collection.
I believe that. Absolutely. And they travel the world to see Star Wars sites and also go on vacation. And they're always looking for Stitch and Star Wars.
That's right. Well, it's interesting. I know everyone that is partnering with you on the Saga Museum of Star Wars Memorabilia. And although there are, you think about multiple collectors, they might probably all have the same stuff. Well, there are duplicates in some collections, but in a lot of ways, everybody kind of collects different stuff. So by bringing everybody together, you really got, like, you already had the world's largest Star Wars collection. Now you've got the world's largest Star Wars collection that could ever be beat. I mean, this is as much as you could possibly get. It's amazing, and it's going to be spectacular if some of the artwork that I've seen you guys put together happens, and I'm really rooting for it. I want it to happen. I want to walk through those doors and see what you guys build.
In the meantime, Rancho Obi-Wan will still be open and available for tours. People can go to ranchoobiwan.org and book a tour. We usually sell out 6 to 8 weeks in advance, and we limit the tour capacity to 12, so everybody has a chance to see everything and hear the docents as they explain what they are.
Right, right. Would you say the guiding idea of Rancho Obi-Wan is the same kind of core idea behind the saga, just on a bigger scale, or is there something different to the saga?
I think the saga will have more defined exhibits. I talked about the rock posters. I can see us doing a music-themed exhibit. I mean, we'll have some permanent displays, and we'll have some revolving displays. We'll also have enough duplicates, as you said, to go out on traveling exhibits. Um, but I can see changing displays every 6 months to encourage people to come back and become members. Uh, so I think it'll still be the stories. We may have guided tours also, but this will be different in that you'll be able to explore it by yourself without a tour. So we
Right.
may have recorded or just the descriptions and the cases will make things very clear how things came about and what they are.
You know, I've never heard anybody mention this, so this is just my impression or understanding of it, but it very much feels like the saga could turn out to be the everyday Star Wars celebration, in the sense where fans can get together and meet up at the saga and do Star Wars related things and go to Star Wars related events and just explore the world of Star Wars in a space that fans love and adore.
Well, one of our ideas in building this museum or converting a building into the museum is to have enough space for parties and get-togethers and be able to serve food, and people can book the site and have a tour of the museum and then get together and have music and food and things of that nature.
That would be amazing. You know, there's going to be a lot of pieces in this museum, and there already are a lot of pieces in your museum. But, you know, I think about this a lot as a collector. You know, you own what's in your collection, but by having a museum, you're sharing it with the world, right?
Absolutely.
So you're not just like, it's almost like you're a steward of these pieces. You're managing it, but you're allowing everybody to come and experience it.
Well, I agree. I'm a steward, and it needs to continue afterwards. I don't want somebody selling it off piecemeal or auction house or anything of that nature. I want to continue the love of Star Wars that I've had since I first saw it at that screening on the back lot of Fox,
Yeah.
and just invite people to share the experience and the love of what George Lucas came up with.
George created Star Wars 50 years ago, next year. Where do you think Star Wars fandom will be in another 50 years, a 100-year anniversary? What do you think of that? Think it'll still be around?
Well, I'll let you know. I'll talk to you at the 100-year anniversary.
That's right.
Yes, I think Star Wars will last for a long time. As Kenner Products once said, Star Wars is forever.
I certainly hope so. Though it does seem like as we move forward in the movie world, more and more of the stuff that you see in the films from a prop and costume perspective is becoming more and more digital, right? They're green screens and less physical objects being made for the films, and there's more and more digital products being made, like video games and animated shows and things like that. What happens, do you think, to the physical objects in this world that's becoming more and more digital?
I think there'll be props, hand props still. I think what we'll see is that, I mean, for Andor, they went back and did actual settings and live action filming and didn't use the volume, which was used on Mandalorian.
And Ahsoka?
So I think it's going to be a combination of all of those things. It depends on the filmmaker and the producer as to how they do things. I think the big question is not so much the digital world as it is AI and what happens with that and what direction that goes in. But I think there will always be products that are out there, and that's, of course, what I specialize in.
Right.
I think the art will still be there, and the fan-made objects, because that's a way to play in the sandbox that George created 50 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that's a way to encourage people to keep Star Wars alive, is by allowing the fans to play in the sandbox. That gives it a richness.
Absolutely, I think
you get.
I think that's very true from the very beginnings of fan relations with Craig Miller back in the late 70s to what I resurrected in 1996. I think Lucasfilm has always been attuned to fans and their feelings.
Right, right. What do you have any worries for Star Wars fans, for the future of Star Wars fans? Really, because there's so many things going on in the world of big media and corporations. Theoretically, a big company buys Disney and they change what Star Wars is, and there's so many what ifs, including AI. People are trying to use AI to make Star Wars movies, and they're becoming so good that the company is trying to pull back on some of those fan-created things. Are you worried about the future, or do you feel like Star Wars will push through?
I think Star Wars will push through. I think you always need to be alert to the changing media scene. But there's so many different entry points to Star Wars that you can choose. Different time frames, different media, books, comics, TV, film, merchandise. You can pick and choose what works for you. You don't have to love it all. There are some series that I was not crazy about, but then there are things that come along like Andor, and you get excited all over again.
Yeah, yeah. Andor was really a shot in the arm for Star Wars. It really took an unusual, serious path and just made it quite special. And it was awesome. And I hope they do more programming like that.
It really worked, and surprisingly, from when it was made, it was very timely too.
Yes, well, politically, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Steve, I really appreciate you spending time with us today. It's good seeing you again. It's always great seeing you, Steve. Thanks for coming out recently to Chicago. I could show you my collection, and we could work on that secret project that we will eventually release. And share.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun. That's gonna be fun. Let us roll the 5-minute or the 4.5-minute video talking about the saga, so that you guys can really, the viewers can get a sense of what Steve and his partners are putting together, because it is a big lift, and a lift that is everybody needs to help with. This thing is going to be amazing. It's the museum, the Star Wars Museum, for fans, by fans.
No other franchise in history has touched so many people across the planet and connected them under a common love.
My eyes just got wide, and I was like, oh my God, this is like nothing I'd ever seen before. Watching movies is never the same again.
Growing up with a single mom, Harrison Ford was a role model for me. Surrogate father, if you will.
We all had that Luke Skywalker. We all had the R2-D2, and we remember playing with Millennium Falcon. It's a commonality.
There are so many people who are attracted to Star Wars story, the mythology, and the characters. It really binds us all together. I've dedicated the better part of my adult life to helping build the Star Wars community. But what I have given it, it has given back to me so much more.
I never thought I'd live in a Star Wars museum. Would never have imagined that direction for myself. I didn't really know that Star Wars was that much of a thing until I visited Rancho Obi-Wan.
Steve Sansweet has been called a master collector of Star Wars memorabilia. He is the proud owner of the largest collection outside of the Lucasfilm archives.
There were a lot of things here. Lots and lots and lots of things.
Well, it's true. I'm a completist. That means everything that's out there, I want one of.
When I started, I had a feeling that someday it would become a behemoth, but I've never looked back.
When I first got here, the whole museum was just an unfinished barn being used as a storage unit. We brought together volunteers, we rearranged, we built out another building, added some interactive elements, and opened up the museum for the world.
Rancho Obi-Wan. But I'm not the only collector out there.
When I started out, it was really about filling in the gaps in my collection when I was a kid, and it just snowballed from there.
We've spent decades amassing these things. We built our house to house collectibles as much to house ourselves.
I'm the Jawa. I'm the little guy that's going around collecting every little piece of scrap that I can and putting it all together, hoping somewhere somebody else is going to find some interest in it.
Combined, these collectors have over 1.5 million pieces.
I was having these conversations with other collectors, and the same question kept coming up. What happens to these collections when we're gone?
I used to joke that I would be laid out in the middle of the museum and have it imploded around me. Well, that's not quite what I wanted for my legacy.
It'd be nice if this went on to do something bigger.
Wouldn't it be cool if we got the best of Star Wars collections and built one unmatchable Star Wars museum?
We're bringing together 4 of the largest Star Wars collections in the world to make one giant collection that will be by far the biggest Star Wars collection in the world.
What we're talking about is building the Jedi Temple for Star Wars Relics.
This will be a place of community building and learning,
where people can come from all over the world and geek out together.
We want hundreds of thousands of people to be able to see these collections.
Fans opening their own museum, on the surface, yeah, it's kind of bonkers. Doing a new museum, it's a big lift.
To bring these collections together, we need to build a team, we need a location, and we need to create educational programming. The logistics are daunting.
For these 4 collectors, they're thinking beyond themselves. They want to create a legacy around all the cultural artifacts they've gathered over the years.
This isn't about us. It's about the stories that the objects have to tell.
As first-generation Star Wars fans, it's up to us to preserve this legacy.
Star Wars is forever. It turns the light on. It's bigger than all of us. Sometimes it could be overwhelming.
Fandom is like life. It finds a way.
This is going to be a world-class museum.
The amount of creativity this franchise has inspired, it's touched people all over the world. That legacy continues, and it will continue for generations.
Today, we are sharing this dream with you and asking for your help to make it a reality. The Saga Museum of Star Wars Memorabilia. Join us on our journey to preserve these collections for future generations.
So, as you can see, they have a lot of plans, and you know, this is the ultimate fan museum for fans, by fans, and they need our help. Please go to ranchoobiwan.org and donate. If you've got professional services that they could potentially use, donate your time. Us at Cinema Relics produced the 2 videos you saw today for these guys, and we're continuing to work with them on a bunch of different projects to help get the word out. We think this is an important project. If you love Star Wars, you will love what they're building, so please get involved. And there was one question we had in the live that was specific to something separate from Steve. Have I ever seen a Red Imperial Guard costume in the market? I have not. I've seen 1 or 2 helmets that were original castings, but not screen used, and I've never seen an original costume myself. Now, I am not a Star Wars prop expert. I do deal in Lucasfilm stuff via Indiana Jones. I love Star Wars, but I don't collect Star Wars props. I do collect Star Wars toys, though, but that's a completely separate thing. So, you know, guys like Gus Lopez, Dave Mandel, Ryan Condal, those guys know more about Star Wars than I do. So give them a reach out. Otherwise, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. We're going to try and do these things more often. I can't promise one next Wednesday, but we're going to try for it. All right, we'll give you guys a heads up if we do schedule one. We'll put it up a few days before. Otherwise, thanks for